Olá a todos, bem-vindos ao canal Seja Tavares. Hoje eu trago-vos uma entrevista com um dos mais ativistas eurodeputados, Ivan Sincic, croata, que conjuntamente com Cristian Teres, Francesca Donato e Christine Anderson tem sido uma forte voz dos europeus pela liberdade contra as violações dos direitos dos cidadãos. E numa altura em que recaem sobre a União Europeia fortes acusações de corrupção relacionadas com a indústria farmacêutica, incluindo a própria Comissária Europeia Ursula von der Leyen, esta instituição tem promovido gravíssimos ataques à democracia e liberdades, defendendo, por exemplo, injeções obrigatórias, como sabemos, e implementação de ferramentas de controle que promovem chantagem e discriminação, como aconteceu com o passaporte sanitário. Para além disso, a União Europeia tem também adotado agora, na crise ucraniana, uma posição que não só penaliza os europeus, como alimenta o próprio conflito. Ora, para percebermos o que se passa, então, nos meandros, nos bastidores de Bruxelas, nada melhor do que ouvir na primeira pessoa quem lá convive diariamente e que tem travado essa batalha titânica contra esta instituição europeia, que parece não ser mais do que um braço do povo globalista do Fórum Económico Mundial, que é controlado pelos senhores do mundo que se reúnem em Davos todos os anos. Dou então, desde já, as boas-vindas ao meu convidado numa entrevista que será conduzida em inglês. Hello, good evening, Ivan. Thank you for your presence live to Portugal. We were together last year in Brussels in a giant demonstration for freedom. It was amazing, almost 1 million people. It's a privilege to have you here with me on this live. Please welcome.
Good evening. Hello from Strasbourg, from European Parliament, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Ivan. You have been one of the great voices in fight for freedom in the European Parliament in the last 3 years, when our rights have been completely violated in an unacceptable way. We have seen precisely in these last 3 years a lot of freedom demonstrations with many people, millions of people in the streets, like last year in Brussels. Do you think that the Europeans have lost the confidence in democracy and they understand now that the freedom is at a risk?
Yes, I'm afraid you're right. Democracy and freedom is in danger in all of Europe and the entire continent. The COVID crisis has shown to us that much of the governments and much of the media and also the pharmaceutical companies and many other companies actually play the same song. It is not so strange when you know that basically all of them or most of them, especially the ones coming from United States, are owned by the great investment funds such as Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street, and others. So basically, it's just one big company, one big corporation. And these corporations have enormous influence on the governments and on the European government that we call European Commission. We do know that chief of the Pfizer company was in close contact with head of the Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. What else is there to add? One of the biggest public procurement deals, the procurement of vaccines, these medical products, it was done, as we now know, from the testimonies in COVID committee, and of course, as we know, by the findings of the European Court of Auditors. Most of these deals were done only between two persons.
With SMS messages.
Yes, most of them being done and concluded with SMS messages. It is a scandal by itself. It is undemocratic. It is shocking. It is conflict of interest, and it is corruption. And we demanded the resignation of the president of the Commission. And well, by the rules of the European institutions, you cannot just have one commissioner resign. They all basically have to resign if you want the president to resign.
Yes, but it seems that the governments are all controlled by the World Economic Forum, which is becoming a kind of an elected world government that people don't want, people didn't vote for them, but it's running everything that goes on in the world. How do you see the role of the World Economic Forum? They meet in Davos every year, and the connections with the European Union?
Well, all of a sudden we hear about this World Economic Forum. What is that? Well, it has been around for some decades, but not much attention was given to it. All of a sudden, it's everywhere. Whatever happens, World Economic Forum has an opinion on that, and they brag that they have penetrated all the cabinets, or the cabinets of the most important or the strongest and most influential countries in the world. And when you listen what these people say, what are their programs and plans, you can clearly see these people are against freedom, both personal freedom and freedom of countries, sovereignty of states. You can hear statements such as the ones that sovereign nations are obsolete. This is completely wrong. This is unimaginable. Also, you can hear statements such as that the conscience or freedom of thought is obsolete. I mean, this is like a bad science fiction novel. I don't know why so much attention is given to these people. Who voted for them? Nobody voted for them. They represent basically no one. And
but they rule the world. But they seem to rule. They seem to rule the world.
Well, it seems they do in a way, because all the governments from so many countries and the people from the Commission, they all go there to Davos. Why? If these people are not important, why do you all go there every year? And why do you follow and implement their programs, their policies they make, their think tanks make? When you see the consequences, you can basically conclude, yes, much of the policies implemented are basically coming from Davos, not our parliaments, not our governments, but from Davos. And who knows from where they come to Davos.
Yeah, that's related to the corruption, because there is a lot of talk about corruption in the European Union with the recent scandals related to the high-ranking elements like Ursula von der Leyen, etc. What do you think is happening in Brussels? Why there are so many corruption scandals going to the press right now?
Well, there is a rule in Brussels. If you want to be a lobbyist, you have to register. And the people who work for the Commission and even people in the Parliament, they have to register or report every meeting with such lobbyists and organization and so. But this is quite a weak measure. I must say that my home country of Croatia is quite a corrupt country, perhaps one of the worst in Europe, but the corruption is mostly on the lower levels. It is more visible, but in Brussels it is on the top level. It is high level corruption, and it takes time for it to be revealed. In Croatia, in some situations, we have better standards for conflict of interest than in European Parliament, for example. When you start your work here, you have to fill some documents. When you start to work in Croatian Parliament, you also have to fill some documents regarding conflict of interest. And the standards I had there are better than the ones here. This is some of the things that surprise me. And my impression is that the corruption comes from the corporations here, directly from Pfizer, directly from BlackRock, directly from basically anyone. We had a scandal regarding Qatargate, but I think it's not done like that. It is more like an exception. They don't go around with bags of money. This is history. It is much more sophisticated here.
Yeah, but can we say that there are criminals in power in the European Union?
Well, yes, definitely. In Croatia, for example, we have a ruling party that has been convicted of being a criminal organization by the Supreme Court of Croatia. So there is no appeal to that. So in Croatia, we have a criminal organization in power. And the European Commission supports that. They don't have issue with that, as long as Croatian government implements whatever policy they send from Brussels to Zagreb. As long as they are obedient, they don't care about corruption. They don't care about arrests, indictment, things like that. And this is telling a lot about European Commission. This is telling a lot about the model of ruling all around European Union.
Yes. But talking about the European Commission, we have to talk about Ursula von der Leyen, because she's a woman that talks so much about defending freedom and democracy. But, for example, she supported mandatory injections and she supported the green passport. How you see that this topic behavior? She defends democracy, but she wants mandatory injections, for example?
Well, this is nothing but lies and hypocrisy. As I stated so many times before, this is a clear violation of fundamental rights, a clear violation of human rights, a clear violation of patients' rights, and many other rights and rules. And it is the negation of freedom of democracy itself. Instead of protecting the citizens' rights in a crisis such as COVID crisis, when they are needed the most, instead of fighting for the scientific truth and truth in general, instead of following principles of science such as the diversity of opinion and scientific method, they did the opposite. They already had a conclusion what they want to do and what is COVID and how it's treated, how it should be dealt, and then from that conclusion they implemented their policies. Instead of course, going the other way around, finding the evidence, talking to different scientists, and then from there, deciding what is better to protect the people. They have failed in every way, in democracy, in moral values, in scientific methods, in anti-corruption, basically anywhere. It's incredible.
And the lack of transparency, especially regarding the contracts that you talked about and the connections of Ursula von der Leyen, her husband, Heiko von der Leyen, who works directly on this area, the pharmaceutical area. So how do you see this lack of transparency with her own husband working with a product that she wants to mandate to everybody?
Well, the case of Heiko von der Leyen, husband of President of the Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, is extremely interesting. I think we haven't seen every information from this case yet. It is still to be revealed. But incredible, of all the areas in the world, we have her husband working in the field, and some companies related to this COVID crisis and these medical products. And I mean, it's incredible. Of all the people in the world, of all the occupations in the world, it is clearly not just that, but all the other things, a conflict of interest. And the conflict of interest is the gateway to corruption. And even though the government, even though the different institutions such as EPPO have not yet concluded it as such, it is clearly, in my political mind, in my experience, extreme case of corruption. Why is it extreme case of corruption? Because the procurement of vaccines includes hundreds of millions of people. There are 450 million people in Europe. And it includes billions and billions of dollars. So it should be prosecuted.
Completely transparent. Yeah, you're completely.
But everything should be transparent. Everything.
But also amazing, and I think it was the biggest aberration was the green certificate, because the green certificate didn't certify nothing. What do you think? You fought a lot against the green certificate, but it was completely unconstitutional. It was discriminatory. How do you concept this green certificate? It's difficult to find words to describe this measure.
Yes, it is sometimes very difficult to describe everything regarding the certificate. You know, it is a nightmare. It is a nightmare in every sense. Not only it violated every possible right, from human rights to constitutional rights and patients' rights, as I mentioned before. What Digital Green Certificate did was a clear evidence, I would say, of evil. You know, you have evil intentions.
Yeah, and despite all their lies, they never came to apologize and to admit they were wrong. Never. They never admit. Can I ask you, because how do you see, in a different matter, how do you see the role of the European Union on the Ukrainian crisis? Because it seems that they don't want to promote peace. They seem to want to fuel this endless conflict. How do you see the role of the European Union on this crisis?
I think that the European Union should use all of its resources to assure ceasefire and then peace and then negotiations. This is the only solution for this crisis. Because if they insist on war, it will only bring destruction to everybody. And with every passing day, more and more lives and property is being destroyed. And in the end, when the war is over, it will be over. Every war is over at some point. My country was in war 30 years ago, Croatian War of Independence. In the end, you have to sit down with the enemy behind the desk, behind the table, and you have to sign a peace treaty. And you have to live with them after the war.
Yeah, but the sanctions haven't worked because Russia has been growing its economy anyway, while Europeans are desperate to pay the bills. Again, in this matter, the sanctions, the European Union is not. Do you think that the European Union is defending the European interests? Promoting so many sanctions?
I think that when it comes to foreign policy, the European Union is following what America wants. Even a few days ago, which a bit shocked me, Mr. Macron, president of France, admitted it, that the Europe should not be following United States in everything, and that Europe should have its own foreign policy. This is true. Some truth from Macron, finally. I have been saying this for years since I entered politics. So we are Europe, and the countries in Europe have to look at their own interests, not just blindly follow any foreign power, in this case, United States. So we should be striving for peace. In the end, there is no other solution out of this than a peaceful solutions.
Yes, but billions have been sent to Ukraine, but nobody knows for sure where this money is going. And there was some scandals with some Zelensky ministers found in Ibiza with a lot of Porsches and holidays. So Ukraine is a country that has been considered over the last years one of the most corrupt nations in Europe. So do you think that should be an inspection of all those funds that are going to all those billions that are going to Ukraine?
Yes, of course. Unfortunately, there is a lot of corruption, low-level corruption, and then middle-level corruption, but also high-level corruption in Eastern Europe. My home country of Croatia, as I said earlier, is extremely corrupt, probably the worst in the European Union. When you go to countries like Serbia or Ukraine or Moldova, things are much worse. Before the war, I suppose. Now in the chaos of war, it's much worse. And a lot of the funds that goes east doesn't help Ukrainian people or Ukrainian soldiers, anybody. It is going perhaps back to the donors, to some rich person in the United States or politician in Europe or Ukrainian oligarchs, who knows where. And yes, every coin, every bill, not just in this case of the money that goes to Ukraine, but in general, should be audited. It should be revised and analyzed. Otherwise, it is embezzlement.
Yes, and the European people they want peace, because there have also been demonstrations every week in several countries against sending of weapons and demanding peace negotiations in Germany, in Spain, in a lot of countries. So you think that the Europeans have realized that the war has to finish, and there are some interests behind it that they don't understand, because the Europeans don't understand why there are no peace negotiations and why they are sending so many weapons.
Yeah, there is a significant part of the European population that is protesting now, and they don't want this conflict to go on. They also want peace negotiations to start, and also they don't want to pay the price of sanctions. As you mentioned before, the sanctions completely failed. They didn't hurt Russia. They even, in the long term, made Russia much stronger. They are also made the United States stronger, but they're deindustrializing Europe, making Europe less competent with every passing day. Just a few days ago, a media outlet made an analysis. 700 billion euros was used to support companies and citizens in Europe for gas prices and energy prices. Okay. So we have paid 700 billion euros more for these and for this energy than a year before. Where did this money go? Well, it went in the end. A great deal of it went to Russia. The other part went to the United States, and of course, all the other countries that are now a middleman. Instead of importing something directly from Russia, now you import it with Saudi Arabia in the middle or some other country, but you still get Russian energy. So not too much has changed. Only like 10% of the companies left Russia, despite the sanctions. There was an analysis, I think, in Financial Times. So not much has changed for the better for the European citizens. Only for the worse, and it will be even worse if this continues.
Yeah, but we have also seen strong protests of farmers in Europe, mainly in the Netherlands, but also in Belgium, Spain, Portugal. Do you think that these sanctions on Russia result on higher energy prices also complicates the food production, the fertilizer purchases? So the farmers also pay the bill for this war. You have supported many farmers in the several protests, I guess.
Yes, of course. I come from a part of Croatia that is known for its agriculture as well, and my family does some agriculture as well. And when you see the way agriculture is done today, it is mostly done in an industrial way. So you need equipment such as tractors. They are made from steel. To make steel, you need oil or you need coal. Also, you need artificial fertilizers. We have a company in Croatia creating artificial fertilizers, which is now in a huge crisis because prices of gas have risen. You also need some pesticides often, and pesticides are also made from carbohydrates. And in the end, you have to move that equipment around. For that, you also need diesel or oil. So much of our food production is energy dependent, and unless we have enough of cheap energy as we had before, the production of food will decrease slowly or faster every year. So this is how it works now, and of course this is a big problem for the farmers as well. But not only this, European regulations are putting national regulations are putting much pressure on them. For example, we have the Netherlands example.
Yes. The government is completely asphyxiating the farmers.
Yeah.
There, but in addition to those farmer protests, we have now a strong protest against Macron in France. What do you think that is going to happen in France? Do you think that Macron will stay on his position, or the people will have something will happen or will change this situation?
Well, I have been following protests in France. I have been following them for a lot of years now, all the way since Gilets jaunes, the yellow vests appeared. I think it was 2018 back then.
Yes,
there is a lot of problems in France now. And but also the French have this the culture, they like to protest. It is part of their culture. For example, Croatians don't like to do that.
Portugal neither. But France, every week they protest. During the pandemic, it was amazing, the protests there. Can I ask you about the current financial system that are in place in Europe? Because it seems that our system, it's based on debt and kind of economy subordinated to the financial markets. Do you agree that these systems puts people on debt? It's not so good for the people.
Yes, of course. The system is based on debt slavery, and it leads nowhere. It only leads to it goes like this. You have a mountain of debt getting bigger and bigger, and you also have a mountain of assets, of property. And the fewer and fewer people have the assets, and the more and more people have this debt. This is short description of this financial system. And every now and then you have a financial crisis that even further expands this gap. And it is unsustainable. When you see the system that is made like this, ever since the Corona crisis and now Ukrainian crisis, we have seen enormous increase in monetary mass. For example, like they usually say, half of all the United States dollars have been made in the last 2 or 3 years. I suppose we can find the exact numbers on the sites of United States government. Also in Europe, a lot of new euros have been made in the last few years. And in the end, you have to see that somewhere. You have to see that somewhere. I have been fighting first for the right of nations to have their own money and to print their own money, but always up to a certain amount with some idea or logic. But what we've seen now in Europe and America for the last few years, I think it's quite mad, because their answer to everything is print more money. We have, this crisis, we need subsidized print money. We have to finance a war, print more money. But I believe this will change quite soon, because the BRICS nations and Shanghai Cooperation Organization is working on a new financial system. And the dollar is being abandoned all around the world. Less and less markets, we need less and less dollars. So you have, with every passing day, more and more dollars and less users. And this is not a good trend for the West or the dollar. I think we will see escalation, massive escalation in the next few years if this continues.
But Europe is also preparing to promote a digital currency, and now the payments with physical cash are beginning to disappear. But do you think that this new tool, the digital money, will be benefic to us, or will be another tool to control population, to implement community system points like in China? What do you think about the digital currency?
Cash is at least some guarantor of freedom. So we need cash. We need to have cash forever. The idea of abandoning it has no good intentions behind it. I'm absolutely sure about this. If you asked me this question in 2018, perhaps I wouldn't be so sure. But now, after COVID crisis, after digital link certificates, I'm absolutely sure that they will misuse such a digital financial system. And digital currency means a total control of a citizen and the company.
Yes, completely. Final question. I want to ask you about the role of the press. They spread so much terror and propaganda in the last 3 years. They seem to only serve the interests of the lords of the world, and they control the communication groups. What do you think about the role of the media, the press, on these last 3 years?
I think they have most of them have completely failed their social role, their professional role. They are supposed to be some kind of watchdog for democracy. They have completely failed that. They're supposed to be following democratic standards and scientific method. They have completely failed that. But it doesn't surprise me, since, as we said in the beginning, both the pharmaceutical companies and the major media groups have the same owners. It all leads back to BlackRock and similar funds. Yeah. So basically, these are just different departments of the same company.
Yes. Finally, I ask you a final message to all the Portuguese people that still believe in freedom. You represent the Europeans. So how can we resist to this giant octopus that wants to rob us, the human essence, to rob our freedoms? How can we resist? And a final message for the Portuguese people from you. You are a great fighter, freedom fighter.
I was very lucky to be one of the people among the first who started to speak along with my colleagues, but also I was very unhappy to see that at the beginning there were so few of us. Now it's much easier, of course. My message is quite simple. Freedom will win, and it will and can be done in a very simple way. Just say no when there is an oppression against you. When they want to force you to do something, just say no, no matter the cost. And if enough of people do that, at least 15-20%, then this system falls. It's that simple. Just say no.
That's a very important message. Thank you for your presence here in my channel. I wish you good luck in your fight. Congratulations for your work, you and your colleagues. And we wish you can fight for our rights and represent us in that heroic way in the parliament for many, many, many years. Ivan, thank you, and goodbye to you.
Thank you, and good night from Strasbourg, friends.
Okay, thank you. E quanto a vocês aí desse lado, muito obrigado também pelos vossos comentários, pela vossa presença, pelas vossas partilhas desta entrevista. Foi mais uma entrevista, desta vez internacional. Espero que tenham gostado. Já sabem, apoiem o canal, partilhem, subscrevam, visitem o site www.canal.com e vamos continuar a resistir com este exemplo dado pelo nosso convidado Vilibor Sincic. Muito obrigado e até à próxima.